Part 1. The house where silence watches. You were told that staying home is avoidance. But here is the truth they never wanted you to hear. Withdrawal is how power regathers itself before it reshapes the world. If you listen closely, you can sense it already. That thin vibration beneath your thoughts, the one you mistake for tiredness. It's not fatigue. It's the early signal that you've been living too far from yourself. People claim solitude is a prison. But every time you enter a room full of noise, you feel something hollow open inside you. Not fear. Recognition. A quiet intuition that the world has grown loud precisely to keep you from noticing what sits in the silence behind your ribs. Schopenhauer wasn't warning you. He was telling you a secret held only by those who stop running from their own reflection. The more a man has in himself, the less he will need from the outside world. He wrote that as a man who saw through the theater long before the rest of us saw the mask slipping. And here's the forbidden truth society keeps hidden behind its endless movement. Your loneliness was never a malfunction. It was the first symptom of intelligence. The signal flare that you've outgrown the conversations around you. The whisper that your mind was built for depths most people never dare descend into. Watch closely. Notice how the world behaves when you stop performing. The invitations slow. The laughter softens. People's voices slip from warmth into calculation. Human connection dissolves into a transaction they never acknowledge aloud. This is not betrayal. This is revelation. Yet the deeper truth lies elsewhere. You weren't drained because you were around people. You were drained because you were required to amputate pieces of your authenticity just to keep the atmosphere comfortable for them. Every smile was a concession. Every polite laugh was a small surrender. Every moment of listening to conversations that grazed the surface but never touched the bone was a reminder that substance frightens those who survive on distraction. Mankind, Machiavelli once said, judge more by the eyes than by the hands. For everyone can see but few can feel. Feel that line. Hold it like a blade. Because it explains why you can be surrounded by voices and still feel the cold loneliness clinging to your shoulders. Most people were trained to look. Very few were trained to see. And almost no one was trained to see you. But here is the paradox. The moment you recognize the emptiness of shallow bonds, a strange form of strength begins to grow inside you. You start craving fewer people, but truer ones. You begin understanding why silence feels heavier than words, why distance feels safer than proximity, why staying home calms you in ways human company never could. The city hums. The notifications glow. Everyone calls it connection. But you've tasted the aftershock of false intimacy. The energy crash that hits you when you step out of a gathering and feel more unknown than before you entered. The quiet resentment that fills your chest when you realize you've spent hours speaking without saying a single honest thing. What you experienced wasn't loneliness. It was contamination. A slow poisoning of your spirit by conversations that never carried meaning. They label you antisocial. But the truth is simpler, colder, and far more dangerous. You don't hate people. You hate pretending. And once the performance becomes unbearable, staying home transforms from habit into liberation. At home, silence becomes a mirror. And mirrors never lie. This is why people fear solitude. Silence speaks. It points out the contradictions you avoid. It exposes the desires you buried. It confronts you with the person you've been hiding behind your own mask. Most people would rather drown in noise than face the truth that emerges when the world shuts up. But you're different. You've begun to feel something shifting in the quiet hours. Not emptiness. Alignment. The kind of alignment only the powerful recognize. Jung once wrote that loneliness does not come from being alone, but from failing to communicate what matters to oneself. That line stings because you know it's true. You've held thoughts that would split the room open. You've swallowed truths because no one around you had the depth to receive them. You've hidden pieces of your mind because handing them to the wrong audience would feel like sacrilege. This is not social anxiety. This is discernment. The first competence of a strategist. Staying home trains that competence into something sharper. You begin to notice the architecture of your thoughts. You begin to observe the mechanics of your desires. You begin to hear the quiet voice inside you that the world has tried to drown since childhood. Its tone surprises you. Calm, measured, unrushed. The voice of someone who has waited a long time to be acknowledged. And the moment you recognize that voice, everything changes. You stop craving attention. You start controlling perception. You stop chasing respect. You start commanding silence. You stop needing validation. You start generating self-originating power. This is the birth of sovereignty. Understand something essential. Power does not grow in crowds. It expands in shadows. It matures in silence. It gathers force in solitude until it becomes something others feel before you even speak. This is why every great mind withdrew from the world before returning to reshape it. Newton in plague-ridden Cambridge. Nietzsche in alpine isolation. Machiavelli himself, exiled from Florence, writing The Prince by candlelight while the world dismissed him as irrelevant. Silence is the forge. Solitude is the anvil. The self is the metal. Pressure is the heat. Leave the workshop too early and you emerge brittle. Stay long enough, and you emerge unbreakable. A man who can sit alone with his thoughts becomes immune to manipulation. A man who needs nothing from the crowd cannot be controlled by it. A man who cultivates inner abundance stops craving external noise. Schopenhauer saw this centuries ago. What looked like isolation was actually insulation. Protection from the world's contagion of mediocrity. Machiavelli said that men are so simple, and so much creatures of circumstance, that the deceiver will always find someone ready to be deceived. He wasn't insulting humanity. He was describing a pattern. People who cannot sit alone are people who can be easily steered. But the one who stays home, the one who listens to silence, the one who builds an empire of thought within four quiet walls, that one becomes dangerous. Because solitude sharpens perception. Silence heightens presence. Stillness awakens inner authority. And once you feel that authority settle into your spine, social noise begins to sound like static. External opinions lose their weight. The world's urgency reveals itself as desperation. And you start to see people not as they present themselves, but as they are. Masks, scripts, fears, strategies. All visible now. All transparent. All irrelevant. This is the moment society starts to fear you. Not because you withdrew, but because you returned with vision instead of need. Power grows faster in secrecy than in attention. And you've just begun to understand why. If this unsettles you, it means the transformation has already begun. Part 2. The architecture of the inner fortress. People think staying home is retreat. But the truth is quieter, older, far more unsettling. You don't withdraw because you're weak. You withdraw because your mind refuses to keep burning itself for others' comfort. Silence becomes seductive once you realize how much of your energy was being siphoned by rooms that never deserved your presence. There is a moment, subtle but irreversible, when you begin to sense the world differently. Sounds feel sharper. Conversations feel scripted. Faces feel masked. You notice the emptiness underneath other people's enthusiasm. Their laughter rings with the echo of fatigue. Their stories twist themselves into shapes designed not to reveal truth, but to avoid it. And suddenly, the home you once saw as shelter becomes something else. A throne room without an audience. A monastery without dogma. A war room where the only strategist worth listening to is the one behind your eyelids. This shift is not madness. It is maturation. Schopenhauer warned through time that most human interaction is noise pretending to be meaning. Noise that leaves you emptier, thinner, drained of the internal clarity you fought so hard to build. They tell you community is sacred, yet every time you step into it, a quiet grief settles on your shoulders. A grief that whispers you were meant for conversations that cut deeper than weather and ambition. But here is the paradox. The more you distance yourself from noise, the more you hear the machinery behind it. You begin to see why people cling to each other. Not for connection, for distraction. To avoid the haunting sensation that life might demand something more honest than performance. Most people are terrified of meeting themselves. Your silence threatens them because it mirrors what they refuse to face. Machiavelli understood the psychology of fear better than any modern philosopher. He wrote that, "Men sooner forget the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony." Meaning, they fear losing comfort more than losing connection. You can see it in every social circle. People cling to habits long after those habits have devoured their identity. They cling to noisy rooms long after those rooms have emptied their spirit. And they cling to shallow bonds because depth requires them to wake up. But you walked out of those rooms. Not because you hate people, but because you refused to be deluded by them. There is nothing noble about blending in with those who have never once looked beneath their own surface. There is nothing brave about entertaining conversations that calcify the mind. There is nothing healthy about offering your authenticity to those who trade their truths for approval. You felt that. You lived that. You paid the price of that. And so you returned home. To rebuild. To listen. To sharpen. To watch. Silence is not the absence of company. It is the presence of clarity. The longer you stay home, the more deeply the world reveals itself. You start noticing patterns in human behavior. The subtle hierarchies hidden in tone. The micro calculations behind every smile. The quiet envy behind every compliment. The subterranean insecurity behind every loud opinion. This is not cynicism. This is perception. Perception that was always there, buried beneath the world's noise. Yet the deeper truth lies elsewhere. Silence does not simply reveal the world. It reveals you. The person you become when you're alone is the only version untouched by performance. No one is watching. No one is judging. No one is expecting. And what emerges in that vacuum is the truth you've spent years negotiating with. Your actual desires. Your buried fears. Your unfiltered thoughts. Your hidden motives. Your forgotten dreams. Your unhealed wounds. Your primitive instincts. Your sovereign voice. Most people spend their entire lives avoiding this confrontation. That's why they drown themselves in constant activity. The noise protects them from the self. But you stayed. You didn't run. You let the silence swallow you. And in that stillness, you discovered a strange sensation spreading slowly through your mind. A feeling almost forbidden in modern life. Self-possession. Not the shallow confidence people parade online. Not the brittle ego that collapses under silence. But real, quiet, impenetrable self-possession. The kind that comes from knowing you no longer need the world's applause to feel alive. The kind that makes you untouchable in rooms where everyone else is negotiating their worth. The kind that radiates invisible threat because power that is self-generated cannot be stolen. This is why staying home becomes addictive. Not because you're hiding, but because you're expanding. People think introspection is gentle. It isn't. It cuts. It sharpens. It rearranges the architecture of your identity. And the more time you spend in silence, the more you feel an internal shift. Your mind becomes heavier. Not with sadness, but with gravity. Gravity is the first signal of inner authority. It's why people who spend long periods in solitude return with a presence that unsettles others. Not intentionally, but inevitably. There is something in their voice that carries weight. Something in their eyes that sees through pretense. Something in their calm that hints at storms they learned to master. This is the quiet danger society fears. A person who has learned to be alone has learned to be sovereign. And sovereignty terrifies those who derive their identity from the crowd. You start to understand why so many great minds were isolated. Not because the world rejected them. Because the world could not withstand the reflections they held up to it. There is a scene that plays out for everyone who chooses the path of solitude. One day, without noticing it, you stop craving permission. You stop needing someone to reassure you. You stop performing gentleness to avoid conflict. Your silence becomes bolder. Your boundaries become sharper. Your energy becomes colder, cleaner, more precise. And that's the moment people start calling you distant. Cold. Different. Not because you change, but because you stopped being shaped by them. You are not becoming antisocial. You are becoming self-defined. Let the world misunderstand you. Let them think silence is weakness. Let them believe withdrawal is defeat. They never learned what Machiavelli taught the powerful. Injuries must be done all at once, but benefits should be granted little by little. Meaning, power moves in shadows first. It gathers. It consolidates. And only then does it strike. Your solitude is consolidation. Your silence is strategy. Your retreat is recalibration. And one day, without warning, you'll walk back into the world with a mind sharpened by quiet and a presence fortified by absence. And then the world will feel different. Or maybe you will. Power shifts the moment your inner fortress locks into place. When noise no longer seduces you. When attention no longer flatters you. When presence no longer overwhelms you. When solitude no longer frightens you. You are not avoiding life. You are preparing for it. And the world, noisy, frantic, desperate, will never understand the strength that comes from choosing distance over dilution. If this unease stirs something in you, it's because you're crossing the threshold already. Part 3. The Sovereign Who Walks Alone. There is a moment, subtle as a shadow crossing the floor, when solitude stops feeling like absence and begins to feel like territory. Your territory. The world outside keeps spinning, frantic and loud, but the stillness around you thickens into something else. Something with gravity. Something with memory. Something with intention. No one teaches you this, but every powerful person eventually learns it. The self you build in silence becomes the armor you wear in public. This is why staying home shapes you in ways society cannot measure. Because solitude is not withdrawal. It is rehearsal, reconstruction, reclamation. The world demands performance. Home demands truth. And truth is always the beginning of power. Let the others scoff at your quiet life. Let them misinterpret your absence as isolation. Let them believe noise equals importance. You know better. You've begun to see the world from behind the curtain. And once you see the strings, the puppets stop impressing you. This is where the transformation begins. The longer you stay home, the sharper your perception grows. You start noticing how many people are addicted to attention because without it, they feel themselves dissolving. You start noticing how many social interactions are currency exchanges disguised as friendship. You start noticing the micro-desperations behind people's eyes as they try to be seen, wanted, validated. They claim they fear loneliness. But what they truly fear is confronting the emptiness inside them, the emptiness they've been pacifying with loud spaces and louder people. You do not carry that fear anymore. You faced it. You sat with it. And by refusing to run, you turned solitude into a throne. Yet the deeper truth lies elsewhere. What you built in silence did not merely free you from others. It freed you from yourself. From the version of you that needed noise to feel alive. From the version that needed reflection to feel real. From the version that depended on approval to feel whole. This liberation does not come with fireworks. It arrives like breath on glass. Quiet. Cold. Certain. Schopenhauer whispered it centuries ago in the kind of tone only the perceptive can hear. A man can be himself only so long as he is alone. This was not philosophy. It was instruction. Because when you're alone, the masks fall away. The armor softens. The performance stops. You finally stop negotiating your identity with the expectations of others. And you meet the shape of the person you were always meant to become. What emerges in that stillness is someone the world is not prepared for. Someone immune to its pressure. Someone unbending to its illusions. Someone who sees through desires before they can attach themselves. Someone sovereign. Machiavelli wrote that a prince who cannot rule himself will always become prey to those who can. This applies to every modern room you've ever walked into. People who lack inner sovereignty cling to external control. They gossip because they have no authority. They manipulate because they have no grounding. They perform dominance because they have no depth. You've stopped mistaking noise for strength. Now you recognize strength for what it actually is. Quiet. Measured. Deliberate. Unhurried. Unapologetic. You no longer seek approval from the crowd because you have finally learned the ancient truth. Power grows faster in secrecy than in attention. And the quieter your life becomes, the more dangerous your mind grows. Silence does not empty you. It concentrates you. It gathers your thoughts into weapons. It distills your presence into something that makes others straighten their posture without knowing why. Your calm begins to unsettle people. Your gaze begins to pierce through their pretenses. Your stillness begins to feel like a verdict. Not because you're trying to intimidate them, but because they can sense you no longer need them. And nothing terrifies the insecure more than a person who cannot be manipulated through loneliness. This is why people begin to retreat from you. Not because you pushed them away, but because your independence exposes their dependence. And here's the paradox. The more sovereign you become, the more the world notices you precisely because you no longer seek to be seen. The moment you stop chasing connection, genuine connection begins seeking you. Not the shallow kind, not the exhausting kind, not the transactional kind, but the rare kind. The kind that recognizes your depth. The kind that respects your boundaries. The kind that understands silence is not the absence of words, but the presence of truth. You become selective, not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect. You begin guarding your energy with the precision of a strategist. You learn that most people cannot follow you into depth because depth demands reflection. And reflection demands courage. This is where your life diverges from theirs. They perform confidence. You embody it. They chase impressions. You cultivate substance. They seek distraction. You seek clarity. They seek company to avoid themselves. You seek solitude to find yourself. And in that difference, power shifts. Strength is no longer the muscles you show the world. Strength becomes the silence you refuse to break. Strength becomes the distance you enforce. Strength becomes the way you walk away without explanation. Sovereignty is not loud. Sovereignty is not flamboyant. Sovereignty does not announce itself. It simply chooses where to stand, and the world adjusts. But here is the final truth you must absorb. Power is not something you display. It is something you carry. Quietly. Internally. Like a blade hidden beneath a cloak. Those who seek to display power reveal their weakness. Those who cultivate it in silence become untouchable. Staying home taught you that. It trained the muscle of your attention. It sharpened the blade of your perception. It rebuilt the architecture of your identity. It gave you back the parts of yourself you abandoned to keep the peace in rooms that never deserved you. Now you stand on the threshold of something irreversible. Once you taste the depth of solitude, the world's noise loses its flavor. Once you feel the calm of inner authority, external authority feels clumsy. Once you meet your true self, you stop performing the person you thought others wanted. You disappear from certain circles. You grow silent in places you once needed. You lose interest in conversations that orbit nothing. People begin to wonder what happened to you. They don't realize you didn't disappear. You simply evolved. Your distance is not detachment. It is discipline. Your silence is not emptiness. It is strategy. Your solitude is not loneliness. It is ascension. Remember this. The world believes power is invisibility. But the wise know power thrives in invisibility. Let them chase the spotlights. Let them drown in noise. Let them exhaust themselves trying to be seen. You have chosen the harder path. The colder path. The lonelier path. The only path that leads to sovereignty. If this unsettles you, it means you were never prepared for power. If this steadies you, it means you were destined for it. And if this awakens something inside you, then the work has already begun. The world simply hasn't caught up yet.